So we have our draws and our sheaths. The next thing we need is our guarding position. So the path of the moon is all basically worked around moon on water as a guarding position. So I'm sure you've seen this in the other videos before, but moon on water is this position. So anyone doing HEMA would recognize it as a low guard. It's a pretty standard guard in most forms of sword fighting. So your feet are in kind of a wide stance, like a high up Zenkusu dachi if you do karate. Almost a walking stance. You don't want to be too low in it, but alternatively you don't want to be too high. So a nice shoulder width apart, knees slightly bent. You've got one hand up high on the hilt, one hand low to give you lots of maneuverability. And then the point of your sword is pointed towards your opponent's throat. And what this does is when you're facing them, it disguises the distance you have a little bit. So they can only kind of see that much of the blade. They don't know how far away you are. And the strength of this guard is that it's super maneuverable, so you can move around in it very easily, and then it lends itself to a lot of defensive positions very quickly. So again, I'll give you some practical applications of how to use this guard now. If someone is attacking, instead of angling the top of the sword, if you angle the hilt, your defense becomes almost an offense. So if he's going to attack my side, the traditional block is this, which is very firm. But if you're in moon on water and you just angle the hilt of the blade, you can hit his hands before he ever even nearly comes near you with his blade. Same with upper attacks. So instead of blocking traditionally, like this, angle the hilt of your sword, keep the point on him, and you're hitting his hands before he even gets his attack. And you can just close down anyone's attacks using this. So this is the beauty of this guard. And just slow motion throw a few attacks there, because I don't want to hit your fingers. One, you can block down basically anything just by cutting at their hands, just by kind of stepping in and out with this guard. So obviously it takes a lot of practice, but it is nice if you have the confidence to just be able to catch them before they even throw their attack. So now we have our draws, our sheaths, our basic guard. The only thing about moon on water is that it doesn't do well against a tough charge. So if someone's trying to break your guard and charge you like boar rushes down the mountain, that's where this guard has its weakness. So thankfully it has a sister guard that defends against that. So if you're in your moon on water guard and you think somebody's going to charge on you, or you need a bit of distance and you're just like, oh fuck, they're coming for me, we move into moon rises over water, which is just a long point. So like most classical fencing has it. It's like an extended guard. HEMA, it will be your long point. It's in a lot of kenjutsu as well. But basically from here, you just thrust out. And what that does is if somebody's coming near you, suddenly a point is in their face. And it extends your distance. So there's a lot more sword between you and getting killed, if that makes sense. So very simple, but it's just for those times in the path of the moon where somebody is just too in your grill and you need a bit of breathing space. So I'll give you a practical application now. Right, so basically this is if you're in moon on water, you're happy, you've got all your balance, you know, you're blocking everything, you're doing your advanced blocks, it's looking great. But then somebody decides like, no, I really want to kill them. This is where this comes in super handy. So if you think somebody is being very aggressive, all you do is straighten the point out towards them, and it's a lot more intimidating to get reward. Now I wouldn't hold it out like that, because if you hold it in that position, somebody is eventually going to just work it out and hit you with Courtier Taps of fan. So if you stand in that guard, eventually somebody is going to work out what you're doing, because you're very out there, you've got a lot of leverage and it's very easy to disarm. But as a quick, somebody is in my face, it's very, very distracting to an opponent to have a sword shoved into your face. So yeah, use it sparingly, but it's super helpful. And then in slow motion, just to show what it's like. Yeah, that is moon rises over water, the very aggressive half sister of moon on water. Right, so we've moved on to the first of the active forms in the Path of the Moon, and that is Courtier Taps' fan, which is one of my all-time favorite forms. and makes up about 90% of the defensive maneuvers that I do in any situation. So as I said in the previous video, you have all your defenses in this guard, but sometimes a static defense isn't enough. You need to riposte or you need to parry, and that's what Courtier Taps' fan does for us. So basically what it is, it's just drawing a huge circle with the point of your sword as a guard or as a parry. So attack comes in from on high, draw a circle to block it. Attack comes in from the side, draw a circle to block it. Attack comes low, draw a circle to block it. And a lot of this is where you're going to see the dance side of the Blade Master thing coming from. So you might be attack, Courtier Taps' fan, attack, Courtier Taps' fan, attack, attack, and you're just defending, 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 and your sword is just a constant motion of defense. And it's really very, very practical. So if you have a thrust coming in, you can almost just fully disarm somebody with a well-placed Courtier Taps' fan. Similarly, if you have somebody coming in from on high, you can throw them off balance by blocking and parrying with Courtier Taps' fan. But shadowboxing will only teach you so much in this regard. So again, we'll jump into a practical example. Okay, so we've seen it shadowboxing, but now some practical application. So this will really show you the difference between a static block, which is great, but doesn't really afford you any advantage, and Courtier Taps' fan, which will really let you take advantage of the fight and really assert your dominance. So we'll do the same situation with the static block and Courtier Taps' fan. So say a downward attack, static block. Yeah, it's good. You've blocked it, you're not dead, but you haven't gained any ground in the fight either. Whereas if you apply Courtier Taps' fan, suddenly there's an opening. And then if we move into something like the moon rises over the lakes, which we've already learned, you can see that we've potentially won the fight. So again, just a little faster, Courtier Taps' fan flowing into moon rises over the lakes. And suddenly I'm in control of the fight, which is exactly what you want. And that's why this is an amazing form. And an example of the form in motion, like I said, kind of flowing from Courtier Taps' fan to Courtier Taps' fan. If you throw a few attacks, 1, 2, 3. It's very, very good at just keeping a defense up. The other thing is, if an opponent is charging you, say with a pole arm or even just thrust, it's very good at just moving that out of the way and keeping you absolutely safe. So it's a more dynamic way of defending yourself, and the Path of the Moon relies on it heavily, heavily. Right, we'll see you in the next one.